Even though there's all that stuff going on in the world, the one thing that I want to bring to your focus at this time is that your soul and all souls who are coming into this time period knew in advance what they were coming into, and therefore they were prepared. And also, they were at a place in their evolution that they could come into such an environment with the challenge of maintaining their heart intact, as well as their ability to connect to the light. And the light is always the light within that connects you to the bigger light. So we're not talking, worshiping and discipline and any of that spiritual stuff. I'm speaking simply about souls. Oof, I love these goosebumps. Souls, or us as the expression of our soul, we are completely equipped for this time period. Now, with this hand represents our soul. Call it our soul, but let's just think of it as consciousness. And consciousness is just so multi-layered, and it's all information fields. And this hand represents the physical or the form. So when our consciousness, all this stuff that's our history, comes into the form, it still has those. And it doesn't come in because it's coming in to this time period to have to struggle. Although struggle might be someone's path for whatever reason, but it doesn't necessarily have to be interpreted the way we might interpret what a struggle is. So we're fully equipped. So the first thing I want you to realize is that you and all of us are fully equipped for these times. And we were not sent into these times to struggle and to have no way and no hope and nothing forward and not have our needs met, because it's an abundant universe. We have belief systems that have been hammered into us that it's not. So I would suggest, even if you've read it, to reread that Wallace D. Wattles book, The Science of Getting Rich. And let me tell you a little about the book. It was written, I don't know, in the 20s or early 1900s, somewhere back then. It was written from the perspective as though he's speaking to you, and it's so simple. And he breaks down that all of creation comes out of, back then they used the terms the ethers. We would now say consciousness fields or some other term like that. But back then, the early spiritualists or people that had a spiritual awareness, they spoke of, astral travel. Now we say OBEs. So he said all of creation comes out of the ethers. Doesn't matter what you create or what we experience, it's still all coming out of the ethers. And so there's two ways, we're in a duality system, of things or our connection with the non-physical and with our abundance or our creation, our ability to consciously create, because oftentimes we unconsciously create, we're just going through the motions. And so the two ways are very simple, and you really need to read the book. It's that we can come from a place of believing that there's not enough to go around. And when we have that belief, we create from that perspective, struggle, competition, all that kind of stuff. Or we realize, now it's a realization, not a belief. We realize that we are able to design in our thoughts and feelings what it is we want, be clear about it, and therefore have that manifest, because we can be creative. And when we create what we want, we don't even know how it's going to manifest. And he says, someone might have to come all the way from Japan to just meet up with you in what seems a coincidental way to bring to you what it is that you need. And it's absolutely fascinating. So I would suggest as a starting point that you read that book. And how I found that book was, I didn't believe in that movie, The Secret. I did watch it because it was quite popular at the time. But I knew it was not complete information, and there was just a lot of sales. They were just selling you stuff. But what stuck out for me was at the very beginning, Rhonda says that her life had fell apart and her daughter gave her a book and everything changed. And she never said what that book was. Come to find out it was the science of getting rich. And so from that book, Abraham, Esther Hicks, created also all of the law of attraction. And so if you read that, it will stir within you things that you've had clouded over because of what's going on in the world. So when we think in terms about abundance, manifesting, creating what you want, and actually not being connected to the lower stuff of the world. In other words, you can observe it, but think in terms, like Tesla said, everything's energy, vibration, and frequency. So all of this consciousness, the spiritual part of yourself, when it comes into form and to create this physical, whatever is limited to that physical form, or if you were a fish, you'd be limited to a fish form or a tree, whatever. So when consciousness is limited to that human form, these consciousness fields you're connected to are still there, but we're limited to our 3D brain, so we can't actively know about that kind of stuff unless we seek it out. And people seek out deep meditation, or that's where their spiritual practices come in, but it's there. And our body, because it's the house of all of those consciousness fields, stores all the information. I think of it as not just our subconscious, but our soul's history of everything. It's all there in the body. It's anchored into the body through these energy fields, and then our beliefs will make some more prominent or not. And that's when people have a realization, it's like bang, they just switch and everything changes. Or let's just say, you'll hear of stories where people just quit smoking overnight. They didn't have to go through this, that, and the other, or just quit drinking, because it's like they switched one gear to the next because it's there. So having said all of that, I just want you to just have that awareness that it's nothing that you have to do. It's that you have to allow the gears to slot into place. Because otherwise, when they're not, you're not able to go and have the momentum. So it was shown to me one time, like I was inside of, it wasn't, I don't know, it was a clock, but I'm thinking it would be like when you see a picture of a clock and they've got all these different wheels and things. So it was like being within it and just seeing how they're all going and how when they slot into place, everything just flows. And I was told that it's that simple. Things have to just slot in. We have to allow them to slot in. And we allow them to slot in by actually being in our body. And so what a lot of light workers, I hate that term, but what a lot of people who think of themselves as light workers and spiritual is they're not actually grounded. So they're off in their head and their thoughts and their hopes, or the upper body, they're all heart and all that stuff, but completely dismissive of the lower chakras or the physical. And that's where they get stuck, because we are designed as electrical beings. The cosmos is electrical. Our nervous system, our brain is measured through electrical pulses, hertz, our heartbeat, the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann resonance is very important because it's the energy field around the planet. It's the planet's own energy field. And so when we're off in our head, or fears, which is similar because it makes us breathe shallowly, we're not grounded. But when we're grounded, it's like bang, everything slots in. So it's like electrician will tell you he has to earth or ground electricity. And so when we're not grounded, therefore not in our body, it's impossible. We might have minutes of, okay, this works for this minute, but we cannot sustain it. So 2 things I've told you in a long-winded way. The first is that everything that you need or desire is already there. It has nothing to do with whether you wish it there or not, it's there. The second thing is, unless you're in your body, you're not going to be able to access them in any permanent way. So now I'm going to tell you the third thing. The third thing is very simple, and it's my favorite, and you might know what's coming. Our breath is the only thing that allows this human physical form to sustain life, to know it's alive. And so if we're not breathing into our body, then we're never going to be able to connect or be alive. And that's why the external world keeps this fear going, because what fear does is it makes you contract and it makes you breathe shallowly and it makes you not be in your body. There's all this stuff going on in your head. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is just close your eyes for a moment and just take a nice deep breath in. And when you exhale, just imagine it flows from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. And I'm going to be quiet, just let you do that on your own without me talking in the background. And so you can open your eyes. And so why I had you do that was to just have you, in this moment, be aware that all you need is one breath. It's just a conscious breath. So it's not that we have to breathe 4 times, hold it, do this and all that stuff, that different disciplines come up. That's all well and good, but life itself is simply the breath connecting us. The breath connects the gap between the physical and the non-physical. So just hold that thought for a moment. So you have to first accept the idea that everything that you need is already there, otherwise you wouldn't think of it. It's already there. You don't have to even know how or why. It's like us saying we believe in God, but what is God? There's certain things that as soul, as infinite beings, we know, but trying to put them into 3D words through a 3D brain is difficult. And so another thing I want you to hold on as a thought is the only times we actually know something is if we know it with every cell in our body. Not we believe it, not we think it, but we know it. I love these goosebumps. And it simply means when it's grounded, then it's a knowing. Otherwise it's a thought, it's a belief, it's a perception, it's all these mind games. And so as spiritual beings moving through these times, we have to know that we are connected. Doesn't matter what the external story is, and that our soul, not necessarily our conscious mind, but our soul knew in advance the times we were coming into. And we never know ourselves in advance how things are going to work out because we're limited to our spiritual limitations of being in a physical body.